Florida Republican Senators Mark Rubio and Rick Scott recently called on Senate leaders to approve more disaster funding in the wake of Florida's devastation due to Hurricane Ian. According to Axios, the lawmakers' request is important because of their previous stance on Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, funding. In 2013, Governor Ron DeSantis, who was a member of Congress at the time, and Mark Rubio both voted against federal funding for the victims of Hurricane Sandy in New York. Let's take a look as MSNBC reports on the hypocrisy DeSantis and his fellow lawmakers are displaying following the devastation of Hurricane Ian.
We live in a very politicized time, but when people are fighting for their lives, when their whole livelihood is at stake, when they've lost everything, if you can't put politics aside for that, then you're just not going to be able to. So I'll work with anybody who wants to help the people of Southwest Florida and throughout our state.
Was Florida Governor Ron DeSantis this week on the topic of putting politics aside during a crisis. Lives matter. For people in the Northeast, though, it's hard to forget something the New York Times reports today. Quote, as a freshman congressman in 2013, Ron DeSantis was unambiguous. A federal bailout for the New York region after Hurricane Sandy was an irresponsible boondoggle, a symbol of the put it on the credit card mentality he had come to Washington to oppose. Quote, I sympathize with the victims, but his answer was no. So here we are in 2022. As you heard, Ron DeSantis has changed his tune.
Definitely the hypocrisy should not go unnoticed. And clearly, you have to suspect, did he change his mind or did he change his circumstance? Because when he was talking about New York, he had no real stake in that. Now we're talking about Florida, where he's the governor, where he has to be held responsible for how the people are saved or not saved, how they deal with it or not. So there is a lot of self-interest in his mind change. So, it's one thing to have a conversion. It's another thing to have self-interest.
Not only did Florida lawmakers vote against hurricane relief for other states in the past, but according to Axios this weekend, several members of Congress from Florida previously voted against a short-term spending bill that includes aid for disaster relief. The lawmakers penned a joint letter to the Senate Appropriations Committee chairs as part of their request for much-needed assistance to Florida. In the letter, the lawmakers stated a robust and timely federal response, including through supplemental programs and funding, will be required to ensure that sufficient resources are provided to rebuild critical infrastructure and public services capacity, and to assist our fellow Floridians in rebuilding their lives. However, the problem is that Florida lawmakers already expressed opposition to additional major disaster relief. Axios noted the Senate passed a stopgap bill Thursday to fund the government through December that included an $18.8 billion fund for FEMA to help states with natural disasters. Manny Diaz, chair of the Florida Democratic Party, criticized Republican lawmakers for their decision to strike down the measure. He stated over the weekend, the same week that Hurricane Ian brought so much chaos and destruction to Florida, not a single Florida Republican cared enough to vote in favor of hurricane relief for the people in their own state hit hardest by the storm. That is a level of callous indifference and political opportunism that boggles my mind. Search and rescue crews are continuing throughout Florida today as the death toll from Hurricane Ian nears 100. In a press conference on Saturday, Governor DeSantis directed Florida residents seeking aid from FEMA to go online. The problem is that more than 600,000 homes and businesses in Florida still didn't have power as of Monday morning, according to poweroutage.us. Many are without clean tap water, with well over 100 boil water advisories in places around the state, according to the Florida Health Department. Linemen from around the country are working around the clock to restore power and internet service and have a goal set of it being fully restored hopefully by this coming Friday. Thank you for watching Raw Story TV. Please be sure to visit us at rawstory.com, stay informed, and tap below to take action by liking, subscribing, and joining all those who like their news raw.